We're entering a strange new era for the Disk System with this release of Ice Climber. As you might notice from the lack of cover art, this was only made available at the Disk Rewriter kiosk. Those stations in stores where you took your old floppy disks in, paid 500 yen, and had a new game written to them. There have been some re-releases of old games lately, ones from the first couple of years of the Famicom's life. Nintendo has already re-released Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. this way. But Ice Climber starts a new trend. This is not a re-release of the Famicom Ice Climber. It's a new port of Versus Ice Climber. What's the difference between those? Well, Nintendo made arcade versions of a lot of the early Famicom games. And while the architecture inside these arcade machines was still essentially the Famicom, the arcade machines didn't have the same constraints that a lot of the home versions did. And as a result, and to give players who could have the same experience in front of their television something different, many of the Versus games had new stages, new features, refined gameplay. Basically, these were often improved versions of those games. Starting with Ice Climber, Nintendo is going to port those Versus games back to the Famicom, or Famicom Disk System in this case. It won't be every single Nintendo re-release that gets this kind of treatment, but there are 4 of them, and it starts right here. The first immediate sign of change is that title screen, which is the one used in the arcade, but the first gameplay difference that you'll notice occurs as soon as you press the start button. You're given your choice of 24 different stages to play. Your goal in Ice Climber is to take Popo and Nana, assuming you're playing 2 players, and scale to the top of a mountain. And when you clear a stage, you go right back to the stage select. Every 8 stages, the stage select option changes, and then you have to select from stages 25 to 48. While there is overlap with the 32 stages from the original Ice Climber, there's enough significant differences that most of the stages are effectively all new. In the game, hitting A jumps and B swings your hammer, and the jumping mechanics have been tweaked a little bit. Not a lot, and you're still going to pass through some platforms, and there's still mysterious variation in how far you jump horizontally. However, you now have a small amount of air control, about 1 block's width. It's not great, but on some of those more annoying jumps, it helps. When you jump up, you can smash through the blocks above you, and you need to just keep climbing up. You can walk off the left and right hand side, and then wrap around to the other. And you do have to do this in order to complete some stages. Once you reach the blue blocks, you'll skid on the ice there, but then if you get just above them to the solid, unbreakable blocks, you'll enter a bonus stage. On the bonus stage, there's 4 vegetables to collect, and these change as you progress through the stages. That is, as your stage count goes up, not which stage number you're doing. During this bonus section, you have a time limit to reach the top, and then jump to the pterodactyl, which will get you the highest bonus. However, if you fall off, or time runs out, well, you don't even lose a life, you just don't get the bonus. And then you get to see your score for the stage, which includes how many vegetables you collected, how many blocks you broke, and how many birds you killed. If you found the circular 2 token, then your bonus on that stage is doubled. Those tokens are hidden within a block on the stage, but there's so many of those, you'd pretty much have to know in advance where the token is in order to collect them. The first 24 stages look pretty much like the classic Ice Climbers, but the later 24 stages are much more difficult, have new stage features like platforms that move up and down, and a rather garish red color scheme. If you manage to clear all 48 stages, well then the game resets and you just do the loop again. This is a game around clearing stages and running up your score, not beating it. The only significant change on the second loop that I know of is that the bear that will push the stage upward comes out a lot faster. You really have to sit around not doing anything for a long time on that first loop in order for the bear to show up. If you're a big Ice Climber fan, you've probably already noticed a few other changes. The graphics have been improved, but more importantly, the sound is significantly better. Nintendo redid all of the sound effects to take advantage of the additional channels on the Disk System, and all of those new effects are really great. Well, except for how the music keeps going for about 5 seconds after you die on the bonus stage. At least they replaced the seals that would fill in gaps with icebergs. Now they have the same snowman sprites that you'd find in the US version. Another strange feature is that randomly, on some stages, after you've cleared your first, there will be wind blowing, and it will push you around as you try to climb the mountain. This isn't a consistent thing. Stages just randomly get wind or not after you've selected them. The wind isn't especially strong, but it does push you around enough to change the dynamics of your jumping, which, given how awkward those could be, actually makes things a lot more complicated. They even interact with the platforms that push you around, and that can send you flying if you land on some of them. An extra hidden feature is that if you're doing extremely well at the game, after clearing 8 stages, there is an extra special bonus stage where the entire mountain is a bonus. But I wasn't good enough to do that. You only get 3 lives, and there are no continues. Even earning extra lives with points is extremely difficult. There is one concession that might help you clear the game, though. If you press the A button 3 times on the title screen, and then hit start, you begin with 6 lives instead of 3. Of course, the big feature that Ice Climber was known for is still here. You can play 2 players simultaneously, though with the advanced difficulty here, you're going to interfere with each other a lot. Ice Climber was tough to play 2-player before, and here it might be nearly impossible. Now if you're sitting there watching this video and going, I had no idea they made this version of Ice Climber. Well, that also seems to be the attitude of most people who encounter it in Japan. It seems like this version of Ice Climber did not do especially well, and proper copies are exceptionally rare. One of my more controversial opinions when I was going through the Famicom library was that I didn't like Ice Climber. I never have, and I never will. The controls are just too sloppy, and I find platforming to be infuriating when you can just fall through the edges of platforms. Now that said, this is the definitive version of Ice Climber. If you've ever said to yourself, why didn't they make an Ice Climber 2 or Super Ice Climber? Well, here you go. If you're going to play Ice Climber, this is the version to play. But personally, I think I'm going to pass.